Welcome to the Friday vlog. And in today's video, we're going to talk about how the impersonal dissolves conflict.
Thank goodness there's something. So I this morning, I don't even know how I would put this into words, and I would not be able to do as good a job as Mr. Eckhart Tolle. I guess it depends in which part of the world or what culture you're from in terms of the pronunciation of his name. I think it's Tolle.
Okay.
So I was reading Eckhart Tolle this morning, and there was a passage about presence, and there was something about it that really struck me in a different way. And presence is something that's really on my mind at the moment, in terms of how I want to achieve more presence. And what does presence actually mean? Presence is a term that's thrown about in all sorts of spiritual circles, and you hear it often in religion, and I've heard that over the years, and really not, I guess I haven't really felt like I've had a good understanding what that means for me. But there was something that he wrote this morning, and I'm not going to try and paraphrase what he wrote. Mm-hmm. I'll try and distill it in my own inimitable way. But how I heard it was that with being present in an impersonal way, as opposed to being caught up in the intellectual machinery, the conceptual mind, was a way to kind of find yourself tuned into the impersonal by realizing that when you're present with your senses in any given situation, so be it with your hearing, your sight, or your smell, all of those senses, in an impersonal way, if you can be present to what is and leave the analytical mind alone to try and chew over what's going on and what's happening, to really just try and anchor yourself in the moment, is to really kind of provide the optics for the impersonal to experience the world that you live in. And through that lens, you're going to probably be much better informed to deal with whatever situation manifests itself. In a way, it's like, if I really start to think about my human experience being kind of, in a way, divided up between my impersonal mind and my personal mind, and there has to be a balance between the two. If I didn't have a personal mind, I wouldn't be able to experience the world that I live in. But so often we live our life from the vantage point or through the optics of the personal mind. And I'm realizing now, in my advanced years, that there needs to be a lot more respect for the impersonal, and that's an incredible resource for me. This is on the back of him talking about, using the example of a Zen master and his student, and talking about using the idea of using your ears to hear in a metaphorical way. So in a sense, I was thinking about senses. So hearing and sight are the obvious senses. We have 5 senses. You may as well use them all. But in a sense, it's like I want to surrender my optics to my impersonal self. And with that information that's coming through, the impersonal self will inform me through instinct or intuition. Rather than get so heavily reliant on my personal self, I want to become more attuned to my impersonal self. And that is about presence. For me, that's what presence means, is to be present to this world that I live in through the optics of my impersonal mind. And then obviously I'm going to go off into my intellectual mind, because that's how I want to make sense of it all. But in a sense, also, I want to be present through those impersonal optics. Okay. to have a more whole and wonderful human experience.
Yes, more responsive.
Yes.
And Angus was sharing this with me this morning because he read it and was reflecting on it and shared it with me. I said, isn't that exactly what's needed when we're working with couples and they're in conflict? Because when couples are in conflict, they're caught up in their personal mind, they're caught up with their agenda, they have usually a point that they think is right, and they often think the other person's point is wrong, and all of that is coming from the personal mind. And if we try to support them with having a conversation with each other and they're coming from their personal minds, is not going to go well. And that's usually why we tend to separate couples out at that point and talk with them to support them with getting more neutral and getting more present in the way that you're describing, and that naturally allows for them to be more open to experiencing their true nature, their impersonal self, however you'd like to describe that. And from that place, conflict dissolves, in my experience. That when we have let go of our agenda and we're not attached to our stake in the ground, and we're really connected with the experience of who we are on the impersonal level, we have an open mind and we have the neutrality to be able to have a really productive conversation.
Yeah, and I wish I could do a more succinct job of describing what I experienced this morning reading that passage. But I think you're absolutely right. In relationship, to be present with our five senses, but more importantly, maybe with our ears.
Okay. Listening?
Really listening and listening deeply,
Yeah.
trying to put myself in their shoes, which is what empathy is. That's me listening deeply. That is actually me listening beyond the confines of my analytical mind. That's me listening in a way and having much greater access to my impersonal self, where all the magic is, where all the solutions are.
Yeah.
And so if I can really start to home in on that, I can have a much better relationship always, on all counts.
Absolutely. So whenever there's conflict, that's the time to recognize that you're caught up in your personal mind with an agenda, not neutral, definitely reactive, and that there can't be productive conversation from that place. It just doesn't go well. And so once the reactivity has settled down, though, and there's more of an open mind and an open heart, then there can be productive conversation. And in terms of navigating relationships, I think that's one of the key things where couples find themselves getting in trouble, where they try to work things out from a reactive state of mind.
Yeah, and the reactivity, I guess, and I need to learn this too. The reactivity is an indicator that I've gone off with my the pixies in my conceptual mind and completely lost the plot.
Right, but you're not present.
I'm not present. It's an indicator that I'm not present, and if I want this to be resolved in a meaningful way, I have somehow got to get present, basically.
Yes. And often what happens is, instead of recognizing that that's the only thing that's needed to be able to make things work more easily in a relationship, couples tend to focus on what they perceive as the issue at that time.
Yeah, the differences.
And try to resolve the issue from a reactive place. And that usually ends up with them coming to see us at some point, because it doesn't work.
Right. It's the process of elimination, isn't it, in the conceptual mind? Let's eradicate all the differences and then we'll be fine. When really it's about expanding
Yes.
into the impersonal.
Yes, exactly.
And the only way to do that is by becoming present.
Right, and seeing the illusion of difference.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for watching. And if you're interested in learning more about how we are working with couples, listen in to our Rewilding Love podcast.
Yeah.
Have a great weekend.
Have a great weekend.